Like again, this tells you something about the internal dynamics of Israeli society. The fact that this man that has been leading a genocide for 3 years, that has been turned your country into the foremost pariah state in the world, that has, is wanted by the International Criminal Court for the crime of using hunger as a weapon of war, is still second in the polls, like trailing behind the person who's first, who is this guy Eisenkot, who maintains a similar position. It's not like as far as the Israeli elections go, you have any candidate that is saying we need to stop the bombing of Gaza, we need to withdraw from the south of Lebanon, we need to find a way to live alongside our neighbors. No, everyone is saying the wars need to keep going, the ethnic cleansing needs to keep going, etc., right? It's the same line across the board. So this is, again, just to go back to your question in regards to this announcement of attacking the kites, is just another excuse to continue the ethnic cleansing.
大家好，这里是华人视角频道。刚才的精彩集锦把一场仍在加萨持续的悲剧浓缩成了极其荒诞的一幕，从轰炸城市到把风筝和气球也当成威胁，所谓安全与战争目标，最终只剩下为继续杀戮寻找借口。更讽刺的是，主导这一切的人，即使遭到国际刑事法院通缉，仍然能够在国内选举民调中名列前茅，而其他候选人的立场似乎也没有本质区别。今天的完整访谈还将把视线从加萨延伸到更大的地区局势。美国政府试图用制裁和美元体系向伊朗施压，甚至要求中国切断与伊朗的贸易往来，但北京已经明确表示不会奉陪，也不会接受没有国际法依据的胁迫。伊朗会如何回应？红海封锁是否会继续也门？沙特以及美国在西太平洋和西亚的布局又会怎样彼此牵动？这场对话讨论的不只是一次新的经济制裁，而是战争、能源、美元霸权与全球秩序正在发生的连锁变化。接下来，让我们一起听听嘉宾如何拆解这些最新发展。
Cared about to listen to their opinions, and who were egging him on and telling him, "Oh yes, the government's gonna fall, and if it doesn't, we'll still manage to win." And look at him now. Like, not look at him. Look at the country now. Look at the situation of the U.S. not just internally, but reputationally across the world. This is a country that is just behind Israel in the index of unlikable, or just like pariah nations across the globe.
Yeah, exactly. And you look at the U.S. and you go, and even taking into account the impact of this war on the idea that the U.S. military was so strong and could project power around the world. And now you have U.S. vassal states in Southeast Asia going, hey, you've completely taken your eyes off of us, and you're not even really protecting your vassal states in West Asia. You're just kind of moving assets around, trying to make it look like you're doing something. And as all of this is happening, I did also want to touch on the situation in Gaza, because I know that Israel is still committing war crimes on a daily basis in the Gaza Strip, still murdering multiple Palestinians after a U.S. delegation was said to have asked Israel to pull back on the killings because it was making them all look bad. And now Israel is waging war on kites and warning the Palestinians who dare to allow their children to fly them. And of course, this is a children's toy here. And it would be laughable if it wasn't so horrific, if this wasn't an all-out genocide that is still ongoing, that is still being live streamed to the world. How do you see the latest updates here and the fact that the Trump administration refuses to make even the slightest effort to rein Netanyahu in, just as Biden did when he was in office?
I mean, to answer your second question first, I think it's part of the course for the U.S. Government historically, right? It's been decades at this point that we have seen this complete capitulation to a foreign government. As far as this law, or I guess orders to attack kites and balloons, well, first it shows that Israel has achieved exactly none of its strategic objectives since the start of the genocide in Gaza. To the fact that now the army is being directed to consider kites and balloons threats coming from Gaza means that you at no point actually dismantle the perceived threat of Gaza, right? Even though the fact is, of course, the threat itself is the existence of the Palestinian people, right? Like that is what is being what they are seeking to exterminate. But I mean, I'm talking, militarily, strategically, It just shows that actually you were defeated in Gaza, just like you were defeated in Lebanon, and you were defeated in Syria. And all that you have left is wanton destruction and the killing of innocent civilians, and in this case, children, right? Again, justification to continue bombing, as if they need any, honestly, as if they need any. Israel Katz, the war minister, could have simply let the army continue doing what it's doing. He didn't need to make this kite statement. I'm sure it's like, for internal consumption at the end of the day, to make the Israeli population that supports what is going in Gaza. We have seen the polls. A large number of Israelis support the ethnic cleansing of Gaza, to make them feel, right, that first of all, there's still a threat. This time is kites. And then there's action against that threat, right? Don't forget, Israel is in the middle of election season. And Netanyahu's numbers, they're not looking great. He's actually second in the polls, right? Like, again, this tells you something about the internal dynamics of Israeli society. The fact that this man that has been leading a genocide for 3 years, that has been turned your country into the foremost pariah state in the world, that has, is wanted by the International Criminal Court for the crime of using hunger as a weapon of war, is still second in the polls, like trailing behind the person who's first, who is this guy Eisenkot, who maintains a similar position. It's not like as far as the Israeli elections go, you have any candidate that is saying we need to stop the bombing of Gaza, we need to withdraw from the south of Lebanon, we need to find a way to live alongside our neighbors. No, everyone is saying the wars need to keep going, the ethnic cleansing needs to keep going, et cetera, right? It's the same line across the board. So this is, again, just to go back to your question in regards to this announcement of attacking the kites, is just another excuse to continue the ethnic cleansing and, for internal Israeli consumption, in the hopes that Likud is going to overtake the other parties, which I wouldn't be surprised if that happens completely at all, Rachel. I mean, if there's one thing that we can say about Netanyahu, besides the fact that he's possibly, the biggest child killer of this century, is that the man knows how to survive. He is a political survival. The man is like Teflon. Nothing seems to affect him. And as far as the U.S. position, well, I guess I already answered your question, right? It's not surprising at all.
Yeah, it really isn't. And I guess Netanyahu is like the cockroach that never quite goes away and survives a number of things. And doesn't that tell you something about the state of Israeli society when a contender who came out and who said everything that you were saying, like, hey, we need to make peace with our neighbors, we need to stop bombing Gaza, they would be laughed off the stage and polling at 0%. So the guys that say what the people want to hear, those are the genocidal maniacs that keep getting more and more support. Now, the last thing I wanted to get into was the situation in Yemen, because I know that Yemen is now reporting that Ansar Allah's forces attacked a Saudi oil tanker off the port city of Yanbu in the Red Sea with a ballistic missile. The shipping company that owns the tanker said no one on board was injured. And this, of course, comes as Yemen has made it clear that they are not afraid of Saudi Arabia, that they will continue their maritime blockade in the Red Sea, and that can be expanded if necessary. When it comes to this front of the war, because I feel like it's kind of been out of the, at least headlines here in the West for a minute, what are you watching here, and could we see more escalation as Iran moves to respond to the latest economic attacks coming from the U.S.?
Well, in Yemen, I would say we need to keep an eye on what's happened inside the country. The activation of Saudi-backed mercenaries, the activation of the attempt to reignite the quote-unquote civil war that that caused Yemen to become essentially the biggest humanitarian crisis since until the start of the genocide in Gaza. There's been many preemptive attacks from the Yemeni armed forces led by Ansar Allah against these mercenary groups. I think, what you said here it leaves it very clear. Like, Yemen is not really afraid of anything. They really aren't. I mean, these are fearless people in the way that they are willing to confront not just, Saudi, not just the mercenaries, but the empire itself, right? I mean, they went to war with the U.S. Navy and sent them packing. So there's really no answer to the Yemeni problem as far as the West is concerned. And I would imagine that's why you don't hear about much what's happening in Yemen, right? Because if there's one thing corporate media, it's very good at, it's at hiding the successes of those it deems to be the enemies of civilization, right? So like we don't talk about that. We wait until something happens to them and then we talk about it. But while they have the upper hand, let's just ignore it. I like, again, just internally, I think it's going to be very interesting how these battles develop, because even before the Saudis bombed Sana'a airport and all of this war reignited, the Yemenis, the Ansar Allah forces were already mobilizing internally. They were calling on tribes, they were calling on the population to mobilize to end the foreign occupation of their country. So it's like it all aligns, right? Like these people were ready to take the fight. To the Saudis, as far as the Mecca agreement, I mean, the ink wasn't dry on the paper in Yemen attacked Saudi Arabia. We're still waiting for the response, right? I mean, the Mecca agreement, it's a smokescreen. It's just something to hang on the wall and say, like, look, we can do our own agreements, I guess, with no actual provisions to activate military action, just to say that we have a defense agreement, right? And I think Yemen's going to continue to be this war front, as you said, right? Like once these sanctions against Iran are more, I mean, I think Besant said that we should expect a major financial institution to be sanctioned this week. I saw him say that, right? Like he's teasing all of these moves. He's teasing all of these new economic attacks. So I feel like the Iranians are also just waiting for that, right? And especially the axis of resistance, they've been, they are still implementing a strategic patience. They're still waiting to see what the enemy does next, to choose how to react. And I think for at least the time being, the Red Sea is going to remain closed. Saudi ships have had to essentially go dark entirely at their attempts to exit the Red Sea, to exit the Strait of Hormuz. And now they're actually trying to exit through the Suez Canal because they don't have any other way. They don't have any other path to take. And that's not going to be fixed neither by the Mecca agreement nor by the sanctions on Iran. It needs to be fixed by what Iran demanded during the signing of the Islamabad MOU, which was an end to the wars, and the withdrawal of U.S. forces from the region. Anything else than that is just going to prolong this war.
Yeah, that's a great point, and good to remember for all of these vassal states that thought that it would be good to work with the U.S. Now they're finding out exactly why Washington should be this pariah state, why they should stay away from them, why they should get off the US dollar system and work with some of the other countries that are actually looking for mutually beneficial agreements. I know that there is certainly a lot at stake here all around.
回看今天的访谈，摆在我们面前的并不只是美国、伊朗、中国之间又一次制裁与反制裁的交锋，也不只是中东战场上某一条战线的升温。真正值得关注的是，一套长期依靠军事压力、金融封锁和政治威胁维持秩序的体系，正在遭遇越来越明显的反作用力。当美国把制裁当成外交工具，把美元体系当成施压武器，并要求其他国家按照自己的意志切断正常贸易时，它实际上提出了一个极其直接的问题：一个国家究竟有没有权利根据自身利益选择伙伴、安排贸易，并决定自己的外交政策？从2018年撕毁伊朗核协议，重新启动极限施压，到后来不断扩大制裁范围，美国原本希望通过经济孤立迫使伊朗屈服，然而现实却一次又一次证明，制裁并没有消除伊朗的国家意志，也没有让它与世界彻底隔绝。相反，长期的压力促使伊朗寻找新的贸易通道、金融安排和区域伙伴。如今，当华盛顿再次要求其他国家停止与伊朗往来时，面对的已经不是一个孤立无援的伊朗，而是一个拥有更多合作空间，也更熟悉如何应对封锁的地区力量。中国的表态之所以重要，正在于他没有把这件事看成一次普通的外交喊话。北京清楚地知道，今天美国要求中国切断与伊朗的贸易，明天就可能以同样的理由要求中国在其他问题上让步。如果每一个国家都必须先得到华盛顿批准才能决定和谁做生意，那么所谓国际秩序就不再是平等国家共同遵守的规则，而会变成强国单方面发出的命令。中国拒绝接受这种逻辑，也是在维护自身的法律空间、经济利益和外交自主权。 更值得思考的是，制裁的后果往往并不会首先落在制定政策的权力阶层身上，政府可以寻找替代渠道，金融机构可以重新安排结算，权贵和大型企业也有更多资源抵御冲击。但普通民众却可能面临物价上涨、药品短缺、就业困难、出行受限和生活选择减少。制裁被包装成针对政府的惩罚，最终却常常变成对整个社会的集体施压。所谓让人民感到痛苦，进而推翻政府的设想，不仅缺乏道德基础，也经常低估了一个社会在外部威胁面前形成的承受力与反弹力。这也是为什么越来越多国家开始重新审视对美元体系的依赖。去美元化并不意味着美元会在一夜之间消失，也不意味着各国立刻放弃现有的金融网络，而是说各国正在意识到，任何过度集中的体系只要被当成武器使用，就会让参与者产生不安全感。于是扩大本币结算，建立新的支付渠道，增加黄金和其他资产储备，推动区域贸易合作，都会成为降低风险的选择。制裁越是被频繁使用，其他国家越有动力寻找替代方案。原本想通过金融权力巩固影响力，结果却可能加快世界金融结构的分散化。中国、伊朗以及其他受到压力的国家正在用不同方式告诉外界，国际合作不能只建立在服从之上，也不能只服务于少数国家的短期利益，真正稳定的关系应该建立在互相尊重、平等协商和可预期的规则之上。今天美国不仅要求对手服从，甚至也把类似条件施加给欧洲、加拿大以及其他盟友，这就让许多国家看见了一个现实，在某些强权眼中，盟友也可能只是工具，伙伴也可能随时被要求牺牲自身利益。一旦这种不可靠被反复验证，所谓联盟的凝聚力自然会受到侵蚀。伊朗方面把经济升级视同军事升级，也说明现代战争早已不止发生在炮火之中。港口封锁、金融禁运、能源限制、航空隔绝和贸易阻断，同样会改变一个国家的生存环境。对受到攻击的一方来说，这些措施并不是抽象的政策名词，而是每天都能感受到的现实压力。当一个国家长期被逼到没有退路，它的战略选择往往会变得更加激烈。所谓战略耐心，并不等于无限等待，暂时克制也不代表永远不会回应。任何一方如果误判对手的承受极限，都可能把经济冲突推向军事冲突，而红海与也门局势则进一步说明区域问题无法只靠外部力量调动军舰、宣布协议或追加制裁来解决。只要战争、封锁和外国驻军仍然存在，局部停火就可能只是短暂间歇，纸面协议也可能只是表面安排，真正有效的解决路径必须包括停止战争、结束占领、尊重地区国家的安全诉求，并让当地社会拥有决定自身未来的权利。否则，任何看似强硬的行动都可能制造新的仇恨和新的战线。加沙的悲剧同样提醒我们，舆论叙事不能替代事实。当天空中的风筝都被描述成威胁，当平民和儿童被持续伤害，却仍然有人试图把一切包装成安全行动，我们就更应该追问，所谓安全究竟保护了谁？所谓秩序究竟服务于谁？当一个政府无视内部警告，也无视外部社会对平民伤亡的质疑，只顾维持战争叙事和政治利益，那么它失去的就不只是国际声誉，更是对生命价值最基本的尊重。今天这场讨论带给我们的最大启示是，不要只看某一条新闻，也不要只听某一个政府的解释。我们要把制裁、战争、能源、金融、贸易和舆论放在同一张地图上观察，谁在承担代价，谁在获得利益，谁有权制定规则，谁又被排除在决策之外。这些问题比口号更加重要。国际局势正在进入一个更加复杂的阶段，旧有的单边命令越来越难以得到无条件执行，新的合作网络也正在形成。未来的世界未必会立刻变得和平，但可以确定的是，任何国家都不可能永远依靠威胁来维持服从。真正持久的安全从来不是建立在让别人害怕之上，而是建立在让别人相信规则公平、承诺可靠、合作能够带来共同收益之上。对于普通观众来说，我们或许无法直接改变大国决策，却可以保持独立思考，分辨事实与宣传，关注那些经常被忽略的平民声音，也可以在每一次讨论中追问战争的代价究竟由谁承担。 欢迎大家在评论区留下你的看法。你认为制裁究竟是在解决问题，还是在制造更大的对立？未来各国会不会进一步减少对单一金融体系的依赖？也欢迎点赞订阅，继续关注更多国际局势与深度解读。